There is an invention sitting in your pocket right now. You have had it for most of your adult life. You sleep beside it. You reach for it before you reach for anything else in the morning. And it has made you more connected to more people than any human being in history. And somehow, you have never felt more alone. This is not a coincidence. And the invention I am talking about is not your phone. It is older than that. Older than the internet. Older than electricity. It is the thing that made all of those things possible. And it changed what it meant to be human long before any of us were born. The invention is the city. Let's start with what human beings were actually built for. For the vast majority of your species' existence, you lived in groups of roughly 150 people. Not approximately, not as a rough estimate. 150 is a number that appears consistently across anthropological research on every hunter-gatherer society ever studied. In the 1990s, British anthropologist Robin Dunbar discovered something remarkable. He found a direct correlation between the size of a primate's neocortex aeuros, the part of the brain responsible for social processing aeuros, and the size of the social group that primate could maintain. When he applied this formula to the human brain, the number he got was 1 in 50. Not 500, not 1,000, not 1,000,000 followers. 1 in 50. That is the number of people your brain was built to genuinely know, to track, to care about, to feel connected to. Everyone inside that circle was known to you completely. You knew their history, their temperament, their fears, their relationship to every other person in the group. You knew who to trust, who to avoid, who was struggling and needed help, and they knew the same about you. You were never a stranger to yourself inside that group, because you were always being witnessed. For 300,000 years, this is how every human on Earth lived. Not in cities. Not in apartment buildings where you don't know the name of the person on the other side of the wall. In circles of 150, where everyone knew your face. Then something changed. About 10,000 years ago, humans began to settle. The shift from hunting and gathering to agriculture meant that for the first time, people stayed in one place. And staying in one place meant communities could grow. Villages became towns, towns became cities, and the city introduced something the human brain had never encountered before: the stranger. In a group of 150, there are no strangers. Everyone is known. But in a city of 10,000, most faces are unfamiliar. Most people you pass will never know your name, will never ask how you are. The ancient world tried to manage this. The Romans built forums. The Greeks built agoras. Medieval towns built market squares, physical spaces designed to force the city strangers into proximity, into conversation, into the kind of repeated contact that slowly builds familiarity. It was an imperfect solution, but it was a solution. It acknowledged the problem. Then came the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution did not just change how people worked, it changed where they lived. Workers flooded into cities by the millions. They arrived without community, without roots, without the 150 people who knew their name. They moved into tenements and boarding houses and rented rooms in streets full of people who were equally displaced, equally unknown, equally alone. The sociologist Emile Durkheim studied this transformation in the late 1800s and introduced a word that had never been needed before: anomie, a state of disconnection from the social fabric, a feeling of not belonging to anything larger than yourself. Durkheim found that anomie was not just an emotional experience. It was a measurable social condition, and it was spreading through industrialized cities like a disease that nobody had a name for. Yet he documented rising rates of depression, of purposelessness, of what we would now call a loneliness epidemic, in cities full of people, surrounded by millions, known by almost none. Sound familiar? Because here is what most people miss. The city did not cause loneliness by putting people together. It caused loneliness by dissolving the only social structure the human brain knew how to use. The group of 150, the circle, where everyone was accountable to everyone else, where your absence was noticed, where your pain could not stay hidden for long. The city replaced that circle with scale. Millions of people. Endless possibility. And the quiet devastation of being completely unknown in the middle of all of it. And then the internet arrived, and we thought we had solved it. We built platforms that let you reach thousands of people instantly. We gave everyone an audience, a follower count, a metric for how many people were paying attention, and the loneliness got worse. In 2023, the United States Surgeon General declared loneliness an official public health epidemic, not a social trend, not a generational quirk, a health emergency. More than half of American adults reported measurable loneliness. This in a country where the average person has access to more human contact, more communication, more connection technology than any civilization in recorded history. The technology did not fail. The technology worked exactly as designed. It connected people at scale. But scale was never what the human brain needed. Your brain does not need 1 million impressions. It needs 150 people who know what happened to you last Tuesday. It needs someone who notices when your voice sounds different. Someone who remembers what you were worried about 3 weeks ago and thinks to ask if it got better. That is not something an algorithm can deliver. That is not something a notification can replace. That is something that requires proximity, repetition, time. The city gave us the world and took away the village. The internet gave us everyone and made it harder to truly have anyone. And in the space between those two things, somewhere between the crowded street and the glowing screen, an entire species learned to be alone in ways their ancestors never imagined. For 300,000 years, loneliness was rare. It was temporary, something that resolved itself the moment you returned to your people. Now it is chronic, ambient, background noise so constant most people have stopped hearing it. You were not built for this, not the city, not the scale, not the endless stream of faces you will never know. You were built for 150 people, a fire, a circle, a group small enough that your presence mattered and your absence would have been noticed before the night was over. That world is gone. But the need for it never left. It is still there. In the part of you that lights up when someone genuinely asks how you are and actually waits for the answer. In the part of you that feels just for a moment like everything is going to be fine when someone who knows you looks you in the eye and says your name. That is not sentiment. That is 300,000 years of your brain recognizing exactly what it was built for.